I'd like to invite Professor Raul Fangueiro to talk a little bit about
Professor
our
titular,
fibers.
investigador.
Full professor and senior researcher at the University of Minho, where he serves as Vice-Rector for Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Knowledge Transfer. He is also a member of Portuguese Council for Science, Technology, and Innovation. A specialist in advanced materials and composites, he is the founder and director of FIBRENAMICS. With more than 250 published articles and 40 patents through his he coordinates international projects and is actively involved in initiatives related to defense, construction, and health. He created and leads the world's largest conference on natural fibers.
The highest world conference in fibers in the world. Very well. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being here. I didn't come by ship. I came by plane. It was faster and more comfortable. Thank you so much for the invitation. I come to Brazil a lot to be part. In Brazil, I was never in an event with ANEA, an cotton event. But what's the topic that I chose for this presentation? Natural fibers, sustainability, and performance. When we talk about natural fibers, we associate them in terms of sustainability. Recently, we heard about the sustainable cotton, but being sustainable is not what we think about. So I'll talk a little bit of this. And being sustainable without compromising the performance and the ability of application in several areas is where the success in this issue. So I believe that these fibers to be winners in the global market, they need to combine these two issues, respond to sustainability challenges, and at the same time not compromising its performance to be used in a more general way. The University of Minho, where I come from, where I graduated and I have my main activity, is at the north of Portugal. Why it's this relevant? Because that's where the textile industry in Portugal is present. It's an industry that is really relevant for the economical, social, scientific, technological context in Portugal. So it's in two main cities, Praga and Guimarães. Guimarães was the city where Portugal was founded in the 1143. The first message I'd like to pass on the importance of ecosystem. And when we talk about this issue approached by the previous panel, I believe that we are facing very comprehensive and complicated challenges ensuring prices, market, supply. This is our complicated issues, and usually we it's hard to face these challenges. I believe that the cotton producers can face this huge challenge ahead alone. So that's why it's important what we call the university ecosystem. Just let's see who is able to create new knowledge, who's able to transform, and who can apply that. So only applying these different entities we can face this challenge with assertivity, with effectiveness and success. So in the pipeline that the Minho University, we believe that it is very important to have investigation uh, centers where that the technology can be transferred to the market. Also, we have units that can convert scientific knowledge that can be scaled in companies, and in the final phase we have the companies and the new companies that are created from there. We cannot forget the importance of the the entrepreneurship based on new ideas in new companies that are created. So with this ecosystem is that we can have a response to challenges that are really relevant. In terms of sustainability, what are natural fibers? Of course, we have some generalities, things that we all have the obsession, the importance of what is sustainability nowadays and how it's transversal to everything that we do, not only in terms of fibers, of all the areas. And here are 4 or 5 drivers that are really key to consider in this issue. In the European context, a few years ago, the European Green Deal was created as a very significant package for all the knowledge that was being applied and the transformation that happened throughout these years. It has a lot with the strategy of the European context. So it really it has been reinforced throughout the years within the European context. But we're facing this issue of sustainability, and there are some disturbing numbers. We have an annual extraction of raw materials that doubled in the last 40 years. So we extract from our natural resources 2 times more than 40 years ago. So we have 65 billion tons of materials per year. Up to by 2050, this number will double. So every inhabitant will consume 70% more materials than in 2005, which is something really concerning. And also, the most concerning data is that 70% of the waste associated to a product is generated before it's used, during its creation, its extraction, and conversion to a final product where we have 70% of its residues. So at the present pace, by 2050, it will be necessary resource equivalent to 3 planet Earths to sustain our way of living. On the other side, this is another concerning data, is that the country overshoot of 2026, and we see that on the side, the day of overload of our country that correspond when Earth over all the people around the world live like a certain humanity. If they, I son of Portugal, and we have this possibility in May, and Brazil will achieve this in August. That means that we are already consuming by the other countries that are to be coming, and we're already impacting what is going to be consumed by the next generation. So all this data is really concerning and makes us think and rethink in a different way how we see our products, our consumption, and it's what really valued while we think how to develop a certain strategy. Of course, the EU textile strategy is linked to sustainability, and you can see it's divided into 3 pillars. But only the first pillar It has to do with the sustainable materials, more sustainable processes, and what you can link into the topic here, which is nitro fibers and cotton, where you have sustainable fibers. It doesn't mean it's only natural fibers, but they occupy a very important role here in these priorities. Going back to the topic of our conference, and when we're talking about the comparative advantage of natural fibers versus synthetic fibers, I'd say that we have a favorable context to the use of natural fibers because of sustainability. All of us associate natural fibers to sustainable. It comes from nature, so if it comes from nature, it's sustainable. Theoretically, many times it's not so simple, but and it also has different issues. But I'd say that there are three global pressures that boost the a more wide kind of use for these fibers. Of course, we have the climate pressure, and we have to think about how do we use this kind of materials. The circular economy, less residues and waste, creating more value from this waste, and also what has been referred. It's really linked to synthetic and natural fibers. That is the microplastics and having a huge environmental impact. This is really important. What happens is that when we compare these natural fibers to synthetic fibers, they present important and huge advantages when we talk in terms of sustainability. Of course, we have a lower carbon footprint, but I'd call the attention for the fact that within natural fibers, cotton is not the lowest one with the lowest carbon footprint. Then, from the point of view of energy consumption, we have the of extraction, the chemical synthesis, the use of energy is really important in the. Usually, it's in synthetic is usually higher than natural fibers. When we talk about also water consumption, the scenario inverts a bit. We spend more water to produce and process natural fibers than synthetic fibers, and here cotton has a huge effect on that. And we have a set of data that allows us to conclude that natural fibers have some comparative advantage when comparing to synthetic fibers. In terms of sustainability, I'm going through this. What are the key messages that we have when compare natural and synthetic fibers? Natural fibers, they are renewables, they capture carbon, they don't generate microplastics, so sustainability is not automatic. We have to take into account the whole cycle of the fiber use. In this meeting, we're focusing on the initial phases of the cotton, the production, and not the whole chain until disposal or use of a certain product manufactured based on that fiber. And when we're talking about carbon footprint, we have to look at the whole cycle. Also, innovative systems, also because these are important in terms of cotton. Sorry. And when we was talking about specifically about cotton, these are data that you know better than myself, and we were talking about the Brazilian positioning in the world, In terms of fibers, the fact is that cotton has a intrinsic set of characteristics that we use them in clothing. We don't need a lot to do a lot. Our challenge is to ensure that this is done in a sustainable way and ensure that it has been said in the panel. We have to think on cotton as a platform with new functions, and this is the huge challenge, combining sustainability of the cotton with this ability of creating new functions to it.
We also compare cotton with other natural fibers in terms, not just in terms of production. We see that, of course, cotton is produced in much larger quantity than other natural fibers. However, there's a paradox here based on this analysis of cotton. We have a number of strong points, renewable, natural origin, biodegradability, it's comfortable and breathable, it's versatile and adaptable for multiple uses, it's widely available and is globally accepted by consumers. So this is something that all of us have sort of taken in as being something that we understand as inherent to cotton. This is something that we've been established over the history of cotton, which is made cotton a very important fiber. But then we have a set of challenges that are associated to it, and we have to be careful when we analyze this from a sustainability and performance point of view. The use of water in the cultivation, the use of pesticides, energy consumption in the ginning and processing, chemical products in dyeing and finishing, waste and effluents, and a limited circularity. And so when we look at this, there's a very little circularity. So there's a set of challenges that are associated still in this area of sustainability, which we have to reflect on and think about and to consider when we're thinking about taking this fiber to the next level. So if we want to look at cotton and move it forwards, of course we know it's a commodity. Then we had to move forward in terms of sustainability through certifications, traceability, and then we have cotton, which in cotton production has a certain regenerative capacity, and then we have to take it up to a level of sustainability which currently is scarce for natural fibers. We don't have this image as being a natural fiber which is sustainable as we think it in accordance to what we believe in our minds. And of course Brazil has an important role here in this issue because it has characteristics as we've seen in the previous discussion and in yesterday's meeting as well. We have this huge capacity for production and so on. So there's a set of regulations and controls that are well defined. So Brazil is a leading exporter, has sustainability, has favorable climate, we have traceability, and this has been an important step forward. And we have the issue of technology associated with the agricultural aspect, and we're seeing videos from the sponsors showing this, and then we have the scale and global scale on production. So from a sustainability factor, looking at these aspects, Brazil does have a very important role here to help cotton can become cotton with good performance and a high level of sustainability. If we think that through all the processing stages, there are a number of things that can influence sustainability. So of course we have throughout the production process, from the cultivation to the end of its life cycle, there are a number of aspects that are fundamental in the way we have to act, and I would say where the world is focusing a lot in order to confront these elements and to achieve improvements in terms of sustainability and the carbon footprint associated to cotton. I won't get into a lot of details here, but these are important data that I can share the presentation with you afterwards. But just to say that here what it's saying is the impact of the cotton throughout its life cycle. If we think about improving the carbon footprint for cotton, individually, each one of these aspects are where we have to act. From a technical point of or scientific point of view, there's a lot to be done, and a lot has been done in terms of on an industrial level and also in terms of the cotton production itself. But there's still a long way forwards before we can bring cotton to a level which I think all of us believe what it can achieve. So here we have a set of aspects to be worked on in the field, in the industrial aspect, in the value chain and the product and in the life cycle itself. So on an international level there are a number of targets that we have to achieve, and each one of those phases and stages impact these aspects of sustainability, namely the level of water consumption, the question of CO2 emissions, reducing the amount of effluents through the industrial processes, and generating adding value to farmers, industry, brands and consumers. And this overview has, from this overview and panorama, we have set up a conference in the ambit of natural fibers where we deal with these issues in this conference. But the message I want to pass to you here today is that cotton has almost stopped being the target of scientific investigation. If you look around, that doesn't exist anymore. So this conference is now in its 8th edition, started in 2013, I believe. So if you were to look at all of the scientific programs, you start to see that the scientific studies being done on cotton are getting scarcer. They're becoming rarer, in where you have 180 scientific presentations being done around the world, but very few are done specifically on cotton. So this is a message that says that we, that it makes it evident and clear that we, it doesn't mean that everything is been done. It means there's a certain level of stagnation taking place, and this is affecting the position of cotton for the future of natural fibers. On the other hand, the investigations in terms of hemp and jute and other fibers, I would say, represent 60 or 70% of all of the studies that are being done, because there are a number of different study groups involved in these other areas, and also it has to do with the functionalization of the fibers as well as the nano technologies that are being developed. So I think this message is important for all of you who are cotton growers and who get things going in the world of cotton, to get an idea that to move forward in terms of the knowledge of cotton, there's nothing significant being developed at the moment in terms of cotton. So we have to focus on this, and we have to bring cotton to the center of the stage as a natural fiber that can continue to be developed technologically. What's a fact, as I mentioned, is that we start to work a lot more with the emergent natural fibers. In other words, and at the moment we're seeing they represent a very small fraction of the markets of natural fibers, but they do occupy certain niches with high added value. So whilst we don't see cotton as being a material that can be used in automobiles, for example, we can see linen and hemp as a potential for that. So this is why we have to do some very important studies in terms of alternative natural fibers. We are involved here in a number of movements in this sense. We have the Chagual fibers and other types of natural fibers that are being investigated. as sources for extraction of fibers that are becoming more and more significant. We also have fibers from the Cairatia trifolia, which is a wild type of grape, which is very much used in India. And as you can see, from that plant you can get fiber with very interesting characteristics. Which are very significant for the production of paper, for example. Also in terms of producing spun yarn for producing textile materials. So there is a significant movement taking place around these alternative natural fibers. And we have to count on them when we think about cotton and the market share that cotton has at the moment, because the future shows that in the ambit of natural fibers, these fibers could start to take some significant space in this market. Also, these fibers can be used for packaging. Also, in a partnership with CIVECT, we have here extraction of fibers from the banana plant, which is something which is becoming more significant, and also with the pineapple and plant as well, where you extract fiber with very interesting characteristics. So these are fibers that cover resources with a lower carbon footprint, and with it's not going to compete with cotton in terms of clothing, but maybe perhaps with other technical type of materials. And here we have the fibers that are being produced. But the fact is that from these fibers it's possible to produce a number of materials and composite materials, and also yarn, and incorporating these yarns for producing certain types of fabrics. So we're not very far away from achieving the level where these fabrics achieve much wider range of applications. And there's a lot of advanced knowledge and study being done on this. And with respect to sustainability, do I have any time left? I'm not sure. So very briefly, another opportunity that is very significant, it's not related to the fibers themselves, but to the waste. As you know, a large component of the polymers that are part of cotton, more than 90%, is cellulose. And there is increasingly a growth for solutions based on cellulose. And here, I'm not talking about production of new fibers, I'm talking about production of nanocellulose, which is basically this white powder, which has spectacular properties. And it becomes an ingredient could be used in lots of things, such as in furniture and in construction. So there's some areas here where Brazil could have a significant role in the development of these materials. We have used it in construction, for example, and here you can see a small addition to this material in concrete can increase the strength of this concrete itself. It is very important from the point of view of the mechanical structures. And also, we can also produce nanofibers, and also with that we can use this basically in skin regeneration. And it's not just cellulose that can be extracted from any type of cotton waste. It's waste that can be transformed into something that has a high added value. And these films are produced using nanocellulose through nanofibers, and this can help to regenerate skin in situations where you have burns or wounds. It has this very interesting characteristic. And another important part of sustainability is recycling, and we've seen that a lot of important steps have been taken, where the challenge has been mainly in terms of mixing and blending cotton with other fibers. So you have the example of elastane, which is one of the most complex fibers, but we also see that there are solutions with elastane and cotton fiber, and managing to produce yarn and clothing items or yarns that have determined a certain percentage of cotton included in them. On the other hand, thinking about the totality of the use of waste, the fibers that are too short to be can be recycled and used in the production of accessories in clothing. So here we have a certain level, almost a full level of circularity that can be achieved with cotton. Going into the second part of my presentation here, if I still have some time left, in terms of the functionalities. So what I've mentioned so far, with the sustainability aspects, but that by itself is not enough. We have to include the issue of performance of the cotton. And here I think we can talk about cotton having a much more different kind of prospect. As I mentioned recently, talking about the intrinsic characteristics of cotton, it has basically remained stable over a long time. Cotton has achieved very few new applications beyond traditional clothing. And talking about cotton 4.0, 5.0, as was well mentioned, we have to add more functions to cotton and add more characteristics to help to widen its range of applications. And that is the great challenge that we have. And going back to Brazilian cotton, I think we can achieve differentiation for cotton Brazil through this. Clearly, cotton has its main intrinsic characteristics, which makes it an essential fiber. It's not for nothing that it represents 20% of the total volume of all fiber use, but cotton can be more than that. So what can happen in that respect? In terms of its intrinsic characteristics, there's a lot of limitations, and I put here some of them. It's inflammable, it's hydrophilic, it absorbs a high level of water, which is not good for certain applications, has low UV resistance, it has a lack of antimicrobial activity. So it's a number of limitations when we talk about the increasing the range of applications for cotton. So what's being proposed and what science and technology has done, and where there's been some evolution, and where I think cotton can gain a new platform and be used with new distinct functionalities, is that in terms of, we have here aspects of chemical modification, nanotechnology, biotechnology, the surface engineering of the fiber, microencapsulation, and so on. We can convert this fiber into other functionalities. So this is, I'm not talking about science fiction here. I'm talking about something that could happen very rapidly because a lot of these this technology is available. And of course, there's a range of applications that can have a higher demand. So here I just mentioned 3, and in the study we have some others, but we don't have time to talk about everything. So in terms of sportwear, high-performance sportwear, and when we are looking at these aspects, we want rapid drying capabilities, together sustainability, and cotton here can have an important role to modify when it's modified into these new applications. The same thing in the area of health and biomedicine. I see a lot of opportunities here for cotton. Some of the intrinsic characteristics are important here. So when we actually talk about dressings and releasing controlled pharmaceutical prospects, and in terms of material engineering, we can alter some of the characteristics of cotton and find a set of applications that can be very important in this area. And finally, in terms of defense and protection, for us Europeans at the moment, this is a topic that's where we see Europe has started to invest more in this area, so there's a lot of potential here, lots of opportunities. I think cotton can come in here as well and play an important role. So in terms of fire resistance and heat resistance, biological protection, protection from electromagnetic discharges, all of this can represent platforms where cotton can achieve greater space in these areas. Here I have a very simple example where over there you can see it's not a cotton fiber, but it could be, because it's cellulose. This is a jute fiber. Just by adding nanoparticles at 0.5%, we can convert the cotton, or any natural fiber in this case, into with antibacterial property. And you can see the bacteria cannot grow over the sample there. And here you can see we can convert this material, which is not electrically conductive, into a material that can conduct electricity. So the lights are on here because it does conduct electricity. I don't think cotton has this capacity unless it's functionalized for that. We also have cotton as a sensor material. So if I use this fiber, which is functionalized for this, I can walk over it and the fiber can detect my weight and how much weight is being applied to that material. This is done just with nanoparticles applied to cotton. And so this type of platform that this fiber can represent new functionalities. So I'll go past this, but this is an application that we had in protection wear to protect against biological and chemical products. So these are cellulose products that are functionalized with nanoparticles, and it's clothing that it can certified for the Portuguese army and which can be used in this context. And so if we had just the intrinsic characteristics of the fiber, it wouldn't have this function. But when we functionalize it, it acquires new characteristics that allow us to apply it in this situation.
So concluding, what I'd like to say is that it's within this dichotomy and sustainability that cotton can really provide performance. We look at the new techniques, ensuring the incorporation of new functionalities in the cotton, and that's where cotton will find its future, and will find a way to expand the demand that we were talking recently, and from this it will provoke a necessity in the market to expand this use of this kind of fibers. But we cannot forget something: the other fibers are not stopped and they're not stuck. The knowledge is on other fibers is evolving as well, so the comparative advantage, or there won't be those hypotheses. So thank you so much.